It's North London derby time. Arsenal against Tottenham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with an opportunity for Arsenal again to increase their lead over Manchester City when they play just a couple of hours afterwards. It's going to be an interesting test for the Gunners who need to keep their title hopes alive by winning every single game, we believe at least, between now and the end of the season. And this is for some probably the toughest test. We're going to break it down. We're going to look ahead to it, and I'm going to do so joined by some fantastic guests. As always, this is the Arsenal Preview Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is our Arsenal Preview Show, the show in which we look ahead to the next Arsenal fixture, which is the North London derby. I'm joined, as always, by some fantastic guests from our Discord server. First of all, it's Tom. How you doing, Tom? You good? You well, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for
dealing with
asking.
mute issues, haven't we?
Yeah, for a second. I'm
All
doing
good,
great.
Mate. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm great. I'm happy. 5-0 beating Chelsea. Couldn't feel better.
Indeed. No, we're in fine spirits. Damien, how are you, my friend?
I'm really good, mate. How are you?
Yes, all good, mate. All good. Excited, I think, for the weekend is the right word. First, I think the most excited I've been going into a North London derby. I'm usually a lot more nervous, but from looking at kind of how Spurs fans are talking about it, I think they think we're quite good, which is not usual.
Yeah, I think they'd be quite happy to just get out with a draw, quite honestly. So
I think they would. Yeah, I think they would. And making his debut, you'll recognise his name from the chat box and potentially how I say it every time I see it. It's Grantley Poos. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, very good. Nice to see you. And Damien, hello again.
Of course. You met each other at the live event.
We did.
We were part of the High Vis Club.
Well, yes, actually, can I just say I was the only one that wasn't? I think you all grouped together just to wind Tom up.
Yeah. Paul as well, right? Paul also wore his.
He was. Yeah.
Yes. Everyone trying to wind me up, and now I've been bought one, so it's it now takes pride of place amongst the other shirts, and
we just got Waka to come.
Yes, maybe. We'll keep fingers crossed. I hope I get to sing it. I really do. I hope that I have to do it beyond anything else. But we'll cross that bridge if and when it arrives. We're here, Grant, to talk, obviously, about the North London derby. How are you feeling ahead of this one?
As nervous as I always am. It is my second worst game of the season. Obviously, the reverse feature is always my worst game of the season.
Oh, really? The home game's worse for you?
That's it's bragging rights. And we, obviously, Essex is riddled with the other side as well as spammers and stuff. So, yeah, I always get nervous. I should be very confident. I mean, this is a completely different team to 3 or 4 years ago. We should go in with this with a lot more confidence. They're also a different team as well. And I think, they have some fragile setups, incredibly high line and things like that. And I think our pass and move can beat that high line quite easily. But it still makes me nervous. Always does.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably our biggest challenge for the remaining games. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The 2 away games we've got are historically in the last decade our trickiest away games. We've only won once in the league at both of these grounds away from home. But I think Arsenal fans are still relatively confident going into this one. Damien, in terms of Tottenham, Grant talked about the way they play a high line and the stubbornness of Ange Postecoglou to play that high line. Do you expect them to change anything and maybe be a little bit more deeper? Because of course Destiny Udogie is not expected. It is definitely not going to be there because he underwent surgery. Pedro Porro might not even be available. He's somewhat of a doubt, but I think he is back in training, so he might play. But they might not have the players to play that type of system.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw in like November, December time when they had all their injuries to their defenders that they still carried on playing that way. And I think if he was going to change, he would have changed it then. I don't think he's going to change it now. At least that's what he tells everybody. So I guess we'll get to see whether he's a man of his word or not.
Indeed. I think that he's an interesting coach. And I think that, to a degree, has deserved praise for what he's done. But my goodness me, he restricts himself with how stubborn he is, because he just simply refuses to adapt to opposition teams. And Tom, if he doesn't adapt to Arsenal, he may find himself getting burned on Sunday afternoon.
Hopefully, technically should be, but it's in the end it really depends on us, because in kind of similarity, I don't. It's hard to bring it up, but if you had the same, I think a lot of people had the same idea when we came up against Aston Villa, because it was basically the same idea of Emery with the high line, and at that time, even though we did manage, at least in the first half, to utilize it properly, I think the finishing kind of let us down. So I think we'll get our chances if he stays with a high line like he usually plays, but it will be a question of our strikers or attacking the players, if they can
And how they
utilize.
adapt to things. Yeah, I think that the lineup. Look, spoiler alert: everyone's picked the same team, so and I don't think it's much surprise when we get to our lineups in a little bit, because we looked so good on Tuesday night against Chelsea, Grant, and we were playing such good football. We deserved to win by even more than the 5 that we managed to score. And Thomas Partey coming back into the team, I think made people realise how much we've missed him this season.
We did, and obviously, we all know the benefit of having Partey available last season and what it did for us, and it was one of the drop-offs. But I think that balance between Partey and allowing Deckers to go further upfield, just the whole thing seems to balance a lot better. I know I sent you a couple of messages about Jesus starting, and it just seemed to unsettle us a little bit. And when, surprisingly so, he went back to the team that was mainly winning games easily, we just suddenly seemed like a better team. And obviously, as you'll find out, but Odegaard, I think, is the thing that the person that I think could unlock Tottenham.
Yeah, it's done before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's scored a couple of times against them. As he scored, I think, in his first North London derby at the Emirates, he scored, and obviously last season, brilliant strike from outside the box. Which it was one of those weird games last season away from home where it was kind of a little bit back and forth. But as soon as Odegaard scored, it was like, well, this is Arsenal just went on and won it relatively comfortably. So I hope it goes the same way, because I could do without a stressful afternoon in North London, that's for sure. The other area, of course, Damien, that we saw change in midweek was at left back, Takehiro Tomiyasu, fit, starting. He has obviously been another player that we've had available for limited and restricted times throughout the season. He features in all of our lineups again. What is it that you like so much about him that he brings that would lean him more so than Kivior and Zinchenko?
I just think he offers more both going forward and in defence. Whereas I think with Kivior, I think he's quite good to have if you're just looking to have a solid back line. He's a reliable defender. He's a good defender. I'm just not as convinced with him going forward. Whereas with Zinchenko, he's a defender that just simply cannot defend. And, but at the same time, if you're looking for someone to pick out a really good pass, then he can unlock a defence with his part. But even that is inconsistent. It's not, it's not like Odegaard or anyone like that. So I just think in the absence of Timber, who we're assuming is going to be a really good fit on that left-hand side, I just think Tomiyasu offers everything that we need. And he's got pace about him as well. He's strong in the challenge. He's not someone you're just going to push off the ball very easily. And I think I just think he's all round the best fit for us.
No, I think that you're right, and I think that we've all gone with that for a lot of the reasons that you highlighted. I think he surprises people when he gets into the final third sometimes. There's a couple of nice little movements and, 1-2s, and he's good with the ball at his feet as well. And I think that there was a moment against Bayern Munich, I think, away from home, where he kind of got into the box and created that chance that did unfortunately get cut out. But he does surprise sometimes in that position, but he's just so consistent defensively for us. He's just such a principled player and a stubborn player defensively. Go on.
Yeah, no, just because there was that time a little while back as well where I don't know if he scored or came very close to scoring. And when Mikel was asked about it in the press conference, he was like, I have no idea what he was doing there. You know, so he was surprised Mikel.
Yeah.
He didn't.
That was the Man City home game, was that? When he obviously, the long ball
Think
from
so,
Partey
yeah.
out to Tommy,
Yeah,
headed it down to Havertz. Yeah.
when he was the last player before having.
It's such a strange way to see him up there, yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. And the other position who's kind of made it, less of a question is at left wing, Tom, and that's Leandro Trossard. Continues to score in big games, scored against Bayern, scored against Porto, scored away at Chelsea earlier this season, scored the first goal against Chelsea this week. He scores in such key fixtures. Liverpool, of course, in the 3-1 win at home. He starts for us all because he just simply is so important, and he's a man for the big games.
I agree, and a lot of people compare him. If you look to Diego Jota, who is very good at in the end product, because Diego Jota does very much the same. He's a very tricky player, can plays in all position, and he's good with finishing. So there's a lot of similarities, and I think one of the reasons I think he kind of upgraded his position is a bit because of how I think Martinelli kind of struggled this season with the new system. He gets a bit more isolated. He's being asked more to stay on the flank, and I think his form is kind of dipped. And I think Trossard is much more complemented to the new system, where he doesn't need this constant interchanging with Jesus. He can drift by himself. He can kind of makes things on his own, and he's much more comfortable playing all the position in the forward line, so he can kind of drift by himself. So I think it's much more suited, and it's obviously shown. If you can see the goals where his position is, how many goals he scored from the central position, not just the left, from the central, and even a bit being from the right position. So it's much more suited for him, this style, and it's gonna be a good question, because at some point we'll see who will get the nod. I mean, I assume this season will be Trossard, but for next season, if Martinelli will have to do this upgrade of himself in order to get back, because at the moment he'll have to adapt himself to the new system. So
yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And it's interesting in the summer as well, if and when we add some 1 or 2 forwards, hopefully two, to the line, how then we structure things going into next season, how we rotate the forwards for different games, Trossard, the role that he plays, where Saka's going to get some rest, hopefully, as well, where Jesus ends up featuring too. So I think Jesus will stay into next season. Of him and Zinchenko, I think Zinchenko is the far more likely player, to leave. I think that Zinchenko signed a deal that was 1 year shorter, perhaps, than Jesus as well, when he signed in 2022. So I think there's a lot of, what's really funny is I've just gone to check that in Google by just typing in the word Jesus into Google, and imagine that I didn't get a result for Gabriel Jesus. Funnily enough, I got a biblical figure instead. So I'm trying to check it. But when it comes to those two, I do think that Jesus is the far more likely of the pair to extend his time at Arsenal beyond that. Just checking. Oh, it was 2027. So he is still going to be going in this summer with 3 years left on his deal. Zinchenko's deal, in comparison, I think is just with 2 years left. So I think he ends in 2026. Jesus did sign a 4. Zinchenko only signed I suppose it was a 4 when he signed, but a 3 in terms of when he's going to finish up. And it was a 4 with Jesus signing a 5. Going around in circles now. When it comes to the other side, though, Grant, and the players that they do still have, they've got a very good record, of course, against us in their own ground. Last season was the first time since, I want to say, 2012 in the league that they lost, of course. The likes of Heung-min Son, Richarlison could be coming back to fitness as well. James Maddison, who I really hope doesn't get any more goal contributions, because it's a bet that I'd quite like to win. But how do you rate their forward line, and what do we need to be wary of?
Unfortunately, you just mentioned the key individual. I think Maddison is the one that unlocks their forward line. Kulusevski, is he playing?
I think he might do. Yeah, they've got Johnson, of course, as well.
I mean, and that was part of my thought process of Tomiyasu on the playing the left back, because obviously we know he likes cutting in a lot. But I think so the forward line themselves struggle without a playmaker. And when Maddison was off for that period of time, and they were struggling to generate goals. But with him, unfortunately, in there, he does tend to unlock the forward three. So, am I worried about them? I've got Saliba, I've got Gabriel at the back, I've got Benjamin Blanco. Am I worried about them? Yeah, I am a little bit. But I think if we can stop the service, and this is why I love Partey in there, if we can stop that service getting to the front three, then I think that's our biggest hope of defending this lovely run of clean sheets that we've had.
Yeah, if we can keep a clean sheet in this one, I think we'll win. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Exactly what I just said. I'd love that to carry on because obviously, like you, I think if it's a clean sheet, then we've won the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And Damien, how much do you think that there is anything in, playing before City, winning, putting the pressure on them? Is there any world in which it matters what we do as to what it affects City?
I don't think it matters a great deal. I think the teams involved, whether you're us, City, Liverpool, whoever, I think you're professional enough to be able to know what you've got to do, regardless of what the results are in any games. So I just think for us, we know we've got to win it, regardless of for the title, it's Tottenham. So that should be enough on its own.
You think it would be? And we'll have to. What, Tom?
I think.
Sorry, go on, Damien. Keep going.
No, I was just going to say, I think as well with a lot of the players that not just we have, but other clubs have as well. I don't think the whole passion for the North London derby comes out as much in the players, which I think is a good thing.
Arteta was asked about that. I think in his presser today, he was kind of asked about like what happened 2 seasons ago when obviously losing their cost us Champions League qualification. And he said that, I forget about it. Like I've forgotten about it. I don't, and they don't really talk about it. They forget that it's a derby. I think he also said as well.
Yeah, I think that would be the case with a lot of the players. And I also look at someone like Ben White, and for me, he just wants to win a game of football regardless of who he's playing. It doesn't matter if it's a North London derby or who it's against.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to find the quote from Arteta where he said it about they've got to kind of just forget about it. Like they forget it's a derby. He said, I think it's an unbelievable atmosphere. It's a beautiful stadium. We played there a few times already, and it's a great atmosphere to play football in. We know about the rivalry, but I think you have to put that aside. You have to live the game with the intensity and the passion that it demands. And on top of that, we know that we know what we are playing for. So I don't think we need anything special because the game has got everything that you need as a player to go and enjoy it. And I thought that was a really important point where he said, just putting the fact that it's a derby aside and moving forwards with that. Tom, the last point I want to talk to before we show the very predictable lineups that we've all got is the fact that if we win this, not only is it St Totteringham's Day, I think we can even draw this game and it's St Totteringham's Day. They can't catch us either way. And the other point is if we win it, we do guarantee Champions League qualification for next season. Neither of these two things are being talked about at all because we're in a title race. Naturally those things get kind of lost and, swallowed up in the furore and the hype. But this will be a second successive season, of course, when we finish with our Spurs, that we qualify for the Champions League. Is it something that we should be referencing more, or is it just one of those things that should be a formality now?
Well, it's actually funny because I was thinking the same thing yesterday before the game, exactly at some point yesterday, that it's going to be St. Tottenham's Day. And exactly what you said. And I thought about it and I was like, really? So, and I think
no one's talking about it.
No, this is what will happen when you become a title contender, then you're kind of there you're definitely there in the top 4. So the top 4 becomes kind of an obvious thing. I mean, if you look at City, if you look at Liverpool, it's not exactly because they had one bad season last year that we didn't, but it kind of becomes like a natural thing, the regularity, because you're already expected to be at the highest point. So the Champions League is kind of an obvious point. And this is where we should be. This is where we aimed to be when Arteta came back. This is the point. And I know a lot of people talk about the fact that, we need to win titles and stuff like this. But the idea that everything else besides the title is obvious now. Like we're guaranteed, we're pretty much guaranteed to be in the Champions League. We're guaranteed, which is not even something that's guaranteeing. You know, you have a top 6 and you have only 4 spots, unfortunately, this year. So all of those things are not as guaranteed as people think. So getting back to a stage where for us is an obvious thing, this is, I think, already a major improvement and exactly where we should be, as a big club. And hopefully the titles will come with it at some point. But all we can do is enjoy it, because as we all know, we're facing probably the best team probably exists in the Premier League or in English football. So that's all we can do. If you can finish, you can try your best and hopeful that you manage to catch the slip up.
Yeah, and for them to slip up, of course, as well. It is weird because I remember like the last season when we qualified for the Champions League, even though again we were in a title race, it was obviously talking about a lot more because it was the first time getting back as the Champions League for something like 7 years. But it is something to being in the Champions League next year is really important because, of course, Arsenal are going to be entering the new competition in its different phase. I think there is more money on offer. It gives Arsenal better, ability to compete in a longer period of time. And it should certainly be something that's seen as the project. Arsenal are now not a side that fight for Champions League, they fight for the Premier League title rather than qualification. But they're now an established, after this season, with 2 seasons in a row qualifying for it, an established Champions League side again. And that's where we wanted to be. That was the minimum expectation of what we wanted when we decided to bring in a new coach. And Arteta has now achieved that. He's got us into a position where we are an established Champions League side again now. And next season Champions League is going to be very interesting. It's going to be tougher because there's more games and more teams, and it's kind of ridiculous. But it's going to be, it's good to be in it. Go on.
Yeah. Exactly. So Tom, sorry, Tom.
Exactly, and I think
fight for it.
Yeah, so, and exactly what you said. And I think since if we go back to Wenger's days, when when people kind of, which ironically make fun of us for managed to staying in the top 4 for such a long time, and called us the 4th place, and it was very important to keep up. The only problem at the Wenger time is that we couldn't step up. I mean, we stayed at this level, but we couldn't step up. At some point, we kind of dropped because, and that's why I'm saying that hopefully, the fact that we're not competing for the top 4, we're actually competing for the title. It's the kind of extra mile that we're missing in the final years of Wenger days, and hopefully we can keep on utilizing it, and hopefully turn us into title-winning teams as well.
And establishing ourselves at that level going forward. Grant.
All I was going to say, and I do hate "I told you so" type people, but do you remember the live?
That means you hate me. I'm a big "told you so" type person.
But do you remember the live event and the debate we had about Arteta out?
Yes. Well, we had I can't remember his name, but the fan that was in the crowd. Very nice fair play to the guy. Stood up for his own view on it. But
that's James what really the frustration was. I mean, my whole aspirations now, compared with 3 years ago, have changed. And I think, like Tom was saying, our aspirations going into a North London derby are more about us maintaining that lead with Man City than it is really Tottenham. And I'm very old and I've got a lot of history with Tottenham, but this is different aspirations. Going
absolutely
back, yeah,
keep going,
it's like the early 2000s. That's how it feels like. Just a different team in Manchester, but it feels like that type of it's either going to be them or us type thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when George Graham came in to some degree, because prior to George Graham coming in, Arsenal hadn't won the league in a very long time, and I think it was when George Graham was a player, really the last successful period of Arsenal prior to him becoming manager, and there was such a period of time between those 2 points where Arsenal were really kind of, they weren't really fighting too much at the top level. So you're looking at when he came in, wins the league in '89 after a couple of years, and then you're then expecting to win the league the following season. And we did obviously win it again. And we'd only lost one game in that entire season, of course, that he managed to win it for a second time. And he left, I think, with a League Cup as well. I'm now talking about Arsenal before I was born, Grant and Damien, so you're going to have to jump in at some time. But those expectations, I imagine, at that time also changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the nail on the head. There's been these periods of time where our aspirations have been, are we going to win it this year and how we're going to win it, as opposed to these individual games. And and I'm saying that this is the North London derby, but as long as we win, I don't care who it is.
Yeah, no, it's what I said it before the Villa game. I was saying people talking about how we're going to take Villa apart, and I was like, mate, if we get 1-0 win, I don't care. Just get 3 points. And after that game, I would rip your arm off for 3 points, because it would have meant that the title races would have been on our hands as we go into this North London derby. It's not, and that's quite big. But hopefully, Nottingham Forest can do us a favour. We're not here to talk about that. We're still here to talk about Arsenal against Spurs. So. With us all picking the same team, so for those listening on audio platforms, it's Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Tomiyasu, Partey, Rice, Odegaard, Saka, Havertz, and Trossard, the same team that played Chelsea. Everyone has chosen their star player, so I'm specifically going to focus these questions around those. Damien, why for you is Martin Odegaard the most pivotal player in this game?
I just think we look at what he's done against Chelsea, what he's done for most of the season for us. He's an architect in the midfield. He's the hardest worker. He leads from the front in terms of our press. And I just think if he's playing the way he was against Chelsea, then Tottenham simply just do not stand a chance, because their defence will not be able to cope with the passes that he puts through. All it will come down to is whether we can finish the chances that he creates for them, because sometimes he must want to rip his hair out with the fact that he just lays on so many amazing opportunities and we just fluff our lines. But, I just think everything about the guy, he's an absolutely incredible player. And I think we're so blessed to actually have him here. People used to go on about how good Mesut Ozil would be and all this sort of stuff. But to me, he's on a different planet to him as well. He's not only got that flair and that vision and everything else, like I said as well, he leads from the front. He wants everyone to press, and you won't see him stop pressing until he gets taken off the field.
Yeah, what Ozil did at Real Madrid was unbelievable. He was the best years of his career at Real Madrid. But for me, Odegaard, his performances as a player, what he's done for Arsenal, and compare that to Ozil at Arsenal. I know Ozil's assist numbers are crazy, but for me, if I was picking one of the two, what I could have, would I rather have Arsenal's Ozil or Arsenal's Odegaard in a side that I was picking? I'd pick Odegaard all day long. It wouldn't be too much of a question. We've gone for Havertz. Tom, talk us for that one.
Well, if Damien went for the architect, I went actually for the finisher. I think because of Tottenham high line, I think that the player will probably get the most chances is Havertz, because of his ability to break the lines and his movement, and very similar to the Aston Villa game, where he actually the one who he got about 3 or 5 times behind the defense line at that game. Unfortunately, it didn't manage to take his chances. So I think he'll be pivotal in that game, because
pivotal rather than pitiful. It sounded like you said pitiful for a second. I was like, I hope he's not going to be pitiful.
No, pivotal. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're good, man.
So, because if he gets his chances, like the Chelsea game, because the first goal he got is exactly how I kind of vision the chances he will get, where he get probably a very accurate long ball behind the defense line and he'll be running there. And this is the kind of chances he will get probably against Tottenham. At least, I think at least 1 or 2 or 3 chances like this. And it'll be on him to finish it. So that's why I think that he'll be the main guy, because it'll be kind of either he's the one who will be, talked about after the game, or he will be the one who kind of scrutinized if he misses the chances. Hopefully won't.
That's usually the life of a striker.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, he's definitely going to be a key figure in this game. Grant, you of course chose Odegaard as well. You can feel
We-
free to talk about it. If you want to talk about a different player, because Damien's stolen all your points, feel free. But
Yeah,
give
I
us
was
your-
going to say, can you just replay the Damien bit back? 'Cause I mean,
Indeed.
he's absolutely right. I just, I know because I mentioned it earlier on about this high line of Tottenham's, and I think that's a guy that can pick a pass, and I think he will unlock their defence quite straightforward. I mean, I've got to be honest with you, although it's quite a wobbly spine of our side, I could have picked anyone up the spine. I think Gabriel, Rice, and obviously Odegaard and Havertz have become they've intensified over the last few weeks. I think they're getting where last year, we dropped off. That's but they've intensified. They've got stronger. One of the things, I know I like your Ozil and Odegaard analogy, but the difference is Odegaard defends, and he defends from the front. He's the first person to close someone down. He's always got the most meters run on a football pitch. I think the guy is, potentially the best midfielder, certainly in Europe at the moment.
I love that you're so scared of saying it.
I want him to win something. That's
absolutely key, without question. I think that it's very easy to kind of judge players individually and say, ability-wise, Odegaard has the potential to be one of the best players that we've ever seen at Arsenal, for sure. But we cannot say that until the guy's lifted a Premier League title or a Champions League player that he's one of the best players ever had. I think,
yeah. And I think he had that, he had that iffy period for about 3 or 4 games. Everyone was saying, is he knackered? Is he injured? And things like that. I mean, he still was one of the best players on the pitch. It's just performances like Chelsea I think, set him aside to everyone else. And I think particularly against Tottenham, he is probably going to be the reason that we win.
It's an interesting. Sorry, go on, Tom.
One thing I want to say about Odegaard, regarding the comparison to Ozil. I don't know who I actually wrote this piece. Maybe it was even you.
I'm really hoping it was me.
Because when you talk about the number, I mean, they use the number 10. Ozil used to be the kind of old number 10. How you look at the number 10, the one who sits behind and put all the balls, and basically this is all he had. And I was about to say that Odegaard is kind of probably one of the first new number 10, the modern number 10, but I think actually De Bruyne is kind of ahead of him because he does the same, which it's not just the passing, it's the entire vision is the ability to as well score, the movement, exactly, to do kind of the all around, not just being the one who picks the pass, the one who counts the assist. It's more than that. It's being the all-round player, but in the number 10 is like having a defensive midfield, but or box to box, but in the closer in the 10 role. So so that's why he's the number 10. I think he's the closest type of player to De Bruyne, and I think and you look even in other clubs like Jude Bellingham and those attacking midfields that do more than just picking up a pass.
I think it's becoming the most important position on the field for teams in the current state of football. You're right to point out Bellingham, who, I know is playing an interesting role for Real Madrid, where he can sometimes play kind of this false 9, but has also played as kind of an attacking midfielder. And I wish that England had a better manager that could get the best out of him in an England shirt as well. But less said about that, the better. But you look at other sides as well, you think about Barcelona and how they're bringing through Pedri. Of course, I know he's gone off slightly a little bit, but now the creative players are becoming more and more relied upon. And if you can combine your most creative player with traits of that of a match winner like De Bruyne, you find yourself like De Bruyne is by far City's most important player, more so than Haaland, and arguably ever so slightly more so than Rodri. Rodri is a very, very close second, but I think De Bruyne, if he's fit all season, proves to be the better player. Often Rodri is appreciated more because he's available all season, whereas De Bruyne often isn't, and I think that's why he slightly edges it for.
And you see the City difference. I mean, you see the time when De Bruyne was injured, the first half of the season when he was injured compared to the one which since De Bruyne came back, they're actually undefeated, which is crazy. And I mean, the
Yeah,
last defeat they had, it was against us.
That Crystal
Exactly.
Palace game where they're 1-0 down and he just pops up with an absolute screamer, curling into the top right-hand corner. But I wanted to go back to that point that Grant was making as well about Odegaard, which was, this hesitance to kind of talk about him amongst the best players, because you don't want to necessarily label him that because he's still, in his mid-20s. He's not necessarily won too much. But I always use an example of this type of conversation is that for me, when I'm doing all-time Arsenal 11s or someone asks me for an all-time Arsenal 11, Patrick Vieira goes immediately into the midfield always because of, how good of a player he is and, of course, what he won. But alongside him, for me, is always Liam Brady. And now Liam Brady only won an FA Cup with Arsenal. He didn't win the titles and, things like this. He got runners up in the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup as well. But it never was. It was never for me when I look back and, I had to look back and do my research as a younger fan, looking back in the years that players like Liam Brady were around, but you recognise their quality. I think that Odegaard will win stuff, but I think there's certainly something to be said about where he's starting to place himself in his consistency and his output and how important he is in big games for us in a team that is not only he captain of, but is now competing for Champions Leagues and competing regularly for the title as well. I didn't go for that player, though. I went for Leandro Trossard, was my player, because for me, he seems to be the guy that is there and scoring the goals, and the guy that is delivering on a consistent basis. And I'm so glad that whilst people were bringing up Trossard, that someone fell into the trap. Troy left the message. Trossard is more effective coming off the bench. Now, I've got a question for you all. Trossard has scored 15 goals this season. Do you think more of them came when he was a substitute or as a starter?
Starter, definitely.
There's got to be a starter.
Yeah,
You wouldn't have said it otherwise.
Of those 15, how many do you think are from him starting games?
11.
2/3, a third, 10, 5, or
I think 9.
It's in between you, Damien, and Tom. It's 10, which I think, Grant, you actually said. 10 of those 15 goals have come from him starting games.
I was about to say 10, but I was thought. I mean, already Damien always said it, so I was going for the 9.
This idea that Trossard is more effective from the bench, I don't think is something that needs to be scapegoated about him anyway. I don't know if that's the right word, but certainly labelled to him.
I think that the mistake that people does is that he's affected. Full stop. He doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's it. He's just a great player.
Exactly, because of his trait is the finishing. Then it doesn't matter if you start him or you take him off the bench, because if you compare, compare to Martinelli, his biggest trait is his speed, is his flair, his ability to run. So sometimes when he come off the bench, it takes him a little longer to settle in. So so he's less effective. But Trossard traits are basically helping him being effective. I mean, no matter where. I mean, no matter what the position, no matter where, if he starts or on the bench, and that's why people think he's a super sub. But I mean, there's a lot of people who are great scorers who actually kind of fell to the same trip. I think who was in the. I mean, I remember one in Juventus who was Trezeguet or Del Piero, who was considered the ultimate super sub, but the same thing. They were great striker no matter where you put them. You bring them off the bench. So yeah, that's why I think.
So that was the same with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer when he was considered a super sub. But I think with Trossard, because he always has such an impact off the bench more than any other player for us, that's probably the reason why he's remembered more for doing that.
Exactly.
You mean
but
not
I
in
think
goals, Damien? You mean his overall play?
Yeah, not just goals, but assists, just everything about his overall play. I think he seems to have, out of all the substitutes that we bring on, Trossard seems to make more of an impact. And that's not to say that others don't make an impact. I just think he makes a bigger impact. People remember that.
I think it's because, as I was saying, it's his output trait. And I think it's an interesting question, because, for example, if you look at people who with good output in our team, you probably see Saka as the one who has the most goals and assists. And the reason we don't have this conversation regarding Saka is because he's a starter. I mean, you never drop him. But if Saka was coming off the bench more often, do you think he'll have the same impact as Trossard? Because I think he would. I think he
genuinely
would.
don't know. I've no idea. You'd
Because
assume he would, wouldn't you? You assume that he would,
exactly,
especially if he
and
was
then
fresher and coming off the bench to run against like tired defenders.
and then you can say the same thing on Saka that he's a super sub, but he would not a super sub. He's just a player who has a great output. He basically just have the final output.
At the end of the day,
and
Trossard was brought in as the backup to Martinelli when he signed. That's why he was brought in as a competitor. Basically brought in as the fourth forward is what he was brought in. And so therefore, we've seen him more. Yeah, exactly like Jota. I always compared him to Jota, and I think that when you're coming into a side and you are that, and then you start to deliver, you build up this reputation as being a super sub. The thing is, he started as many games this season, 21, as he has coming off the bench, 21. And he scored double the amount of goals while starting now. Yes, he's played more minutes, definitely. That's an argument. But he's still delivering. That's the point. He's still delivering when he's starting games. And these also come against big sides. Started against Porto in that game, scored, a really, really important goal. Started away at Everton, a game where we have struggled so many years in a row to get results in. He starts there and he scores. He started against PSV in the Champions League and scored. He started away at Sevilla in the home game against Sevilla and also scored. He starts games and he scores against these teams. He also comes off the bench and scores against big sides as well, like Liverpool, like Chelsea, like Bayern Munich, of course, as well. But he started in the game away at Brighton. Sorry, not away at Brighton, away at Wolves, and scored the first goal in that game. Really important goal for us as well. So, for me, the argument that Trossard's more effective off the bench, I just think he's effective. If you want to talk about him being a player, he's just effective. He's just good. Right, we'll end the show on predictions. Grant, we'll start with you. Scoreline and scorers, please.
I'm going to go for a clean sheet, so I'm going to go for. I'm going to be courageous. 3-0 to a
3-0. Love it.
Arsenal. Yep.
Scorers.
I absolutely would love to see Havertz carry on. So I'll go for Havertz.
One each of my wallet, or just because of his form?
One each across the front. So Saka, Trossard, and Havertz.
Lovely stuff. Damien.
Not a Benny White screamer.
Oh, it's fine. We've already got that a few times this season.
Yeah, we have.
I'm going to go for 7 clean sheets in a row. And I'm going to go
7 in a row. That's incredible.
Yeah, I think it either equals the record if we do that, or it breaks the record. One of the two.
Right.
I can't remember which one it is, but and I'm going to go for 4-0 with Trossard, Rice. I actually think what I want to see from Rice. I dreamt this in the game against Chelsea, and I want to see him on the left-hand side of the Tottenham goal, outside the box, firing it into the right-hand side, hits the post and goes into the side netting on the left-hand side. I always think when it hits the post or the crossbar, it always
That's very accurate.
Yeah, no, like I dreamt it in the game against Chelsea. And I think we give Gabriel, and I'll have to give Martinelli a go. I've had to take him out of the team, which I don't like doing. So he'll come on and score one in the 88th minute.
There you go. I'm just trying to look online. It's saying in 2008, 2009, Man United kept 14 consecutive clean sheets. I don't know if that's
this is away clean sheets, though, isn't it?
Oh, is it away clean sheet?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, that would make more sense.
And I think you are right, Damien. If we get one at the weekend, that's it. We're ahead of the rest.
We have the records. Have you seen this funny thing? I think it was Rory Talks Football, who's a fantastic young content creator at the moment, and a brilliant tweet about you've seen Spurs fans trying to make kind of combined 11s.
Oh, I've seen it. It's brilliant.
A lot of what they're doing is they're obviously claiming that Vicario is better than Raya. They're claiming that Van der Ven and Romero should be starting. They're claiming that Porro and Adoji should be in there. And people point out, well, Raya has got the most clean sheets in the league. He's going to win the Golden Glove. Why should he be? And Spurs fans, well, he's had a great defence in front of him. Hold on. How can you say he's got a great defence in front of him and then say that you need more Spurs defenders in front of the... That doesn't make any sense, Spurs fans. It's just...
Yeah,
and by the way, it goes even forward, because when you ask them that, they say that, well, we play with a high line. That's why we concede more. But then you look at the statistics, and Arsenal play with even a higher line. Even Bournemouth play with a higher line.
Yeah,
so it doesn't make any sense. I mean... Tottenham be Tottenham fan. I mean, for some reason, they I mean,
So
Van de Ven
history
is a
of the
good
toss-up.
player, but I mean, they
Yeah.
keep on. I mean, they did it last year with Romero. They're trying to stick him next to the Van Dijk and Saliba and all those. And I mean, he's a
not
good
good.
player, but come on. I mean,
Yeah. Saliba and
Be-
Gabriel are up there as the best Premier League partnership in this season.
I mean,
Period.
you just have
There
to
is
look at
no
the
debate.
stats. It's
There's just-
crazy. You have to just
You can
have
talk
to
about
look-
individuals. You know, Van Dijk has had an excellent season and should certainly be talked about as going in that front. Saliba has not been as good as Gabriel for me this season. And if I was doing a team this season, it would be Van Dijk and Gabriel as the back two. But if you're talking about best partnerships, if you're talking about combined the levels with Spurs, you know, Ben White has been stunning. You know, he's been way better than Pedro Porro. The left back is the Adoji would definitely get into it because our left back position is very fluid and we change and pick and choose between our left backs. But you can't say that David Raya, you know, I think Vicario has been very good, but the reason why Vicario has been very good is because he's been asked to be very good because they keep conceding so many damn chances. So he gets the opportunity to make more saves. Because of their defense being ironically quite poor. I think it's a toss-up between Raya and Vicario. I rate Vicario. I think he's a good goalkeeper, but yeah, it's just funny. Tom, scoreline and scorers if you can.
Yeah. So I think it's gonna be. Actually, I think it's gonna be closer. I think it's gonna be a 2-0, and I think it's gonna be Havertz 1, and I think the second one will be Saka. I think it's going to be a penalty for Saka. He gets a penalty.
Arsenal being given a penalty by VAR. Jared Gillett of all people, maybe one day.
It was something like I assume something less stupid from Romario, like a crazy tackle or a handball, or something crazy. He'll do.
It's, Arsenal have got their fair share of penalties in North London derbies, but it's fair to say so of Tottenham. When Harry Kane, of course, was banging them in nearly every single time we played them. Thankfully, he won't be there, but he did get his annual penalty at the Emirates and scored it, obviously. Anyway, I'm going to go with a 4. I nearly said 4-0 there, which would be great. Yeah, screw it. Yeah, 4-0 Arsenal. Havertz with a screamer. Tommy Asu with a goal. Just love seeing him celebrate. So he's just the happiest man on earth when he gets a goal. We'll go with Declan Rice goal and Odegaard as well. And Saka's going to get a hat-trick of assists in that as well on the night. Just I need Havertz to be involved in some way, shape or form and James Maddison to have no say in the game whatsoever. That's the dream. And hopefully it comes to fruition. In the chat box, Greg says 4-1 Saka, Trossard, Havertz and Rice. Bradley says 3-1 Arsenal, Havertz hat-trick. Temi says 1-4 to Arsenal. Spurs win reverse. Oh, we know he's going for a 4-1 Spurs win for reverse psychology. I'm brave. Amira says 2-0 Tommy Header because he's the best Asian player in the league. I think that's a little bit of a dig at Heung-min Son. And a classic Odegaard North London derby screamer as well. Paul's going for a 4-0 Saka, Trossard and a brace from Kai. Iron's going for a 3-2. We win. We had some difficulties in defence against Chelsea. Jackson was bad in finishing. First goal will be so important. Steve says 2-0 Odegaard and Trossard. Dom says 2-1 Arsenal, Havertz and Trossard. Rancid Pumpkin says 2-0 Saka and Tomiyasu. And Sasky says 2-1 to the Arsenal, Saka and Martinelli. I'll be throwing some of these others up whilst we leave, like Natalie's and Temi's as well. But Damien, thank you so much, mate, for your time. Tell people where they can find you.
I'm on the Discord. You find me in there.
Lovely stuff. Thank you for your time, mate. Tom, thank you for yours. Tell people they can find you.
The Discord server, the best place to be.
There you go. I should pay these guys. And lastly, making a fantastic day.
Mike.
Yes, indeed. Mike. Mike? I just said Mike. You said Mike, David, and completely threw me off. Grant, thank you so much.
No, your Mike. Tom, your Mike.
Oh, my Mike.
No, we can't hear you now.
You know, he unplugs his mic just as he was getting to me. It's because he's not allowed to swear online, I think.
Oh, dude. Is that working? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Lovely stuff. Sorry about that. I must have knocked it. I need to get a new cable, apparently. We've worked out the cable is definitely the problem. So I've used a different one and it's gone back. But Grant, thank you for your time, mate. Tell me where people can find you.
Well, Discord and Grant R. Reid on the famous X. So if you want to reach out, can I just say thank you as well? Because I was nervous about this. So
you did brilliantly.
Thank you for treating me with kid gloves. Cheers, Damien.
No, it's great when debuts happen because obviously it encourages more people to take that plunge as well. So thank you. We always think of Vinny, of course, as well when we get debutants on because he works so hard trying to get people to do it. And Dan, of course, in the chat in our Discord now makes such an effort to try and get more people on as well. So thank you to all the effort of our Discord members. If you would like to join up, of course, there's a link in the link tree down in the description. And you can check us out by going there. And you may need to go onto laptop or Android because iOS is sometimes a bit weird when trying to sign up to be a member. But work it out, and it'll go good. Thank you for listening. Drop a like on the video and subscribe if you know. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. to round off a lot of what Mikel Arteta has said in his presser. Some interesting comments about Jurrien Timber. He's very close. He says, I've got a weird feeling you might see him on the bench. I'm not saying that he's going to be on the bench, but I've just got that weird feeling. I've no inside info on that, by the way. I just kind of hope he's there.
What an uplift, though, isn't it? What an absolute uplift that'll be.
I know, exactly. It's exactly that reason. Just seeing it would be a really big boost.
And a Timber goal.
Yeah, 4-0 Timber with a hat-trick from the bench. That'd be brilliant. If he's scoring goals like we saw on Monday night, getting on for the last few minutes. Thank you for listening, people. We'll speak to you very, very soon. Have a fantastic rest of your evening. And as always, up the Arsenal.